This little friend is the studio growth formula. And these couple of circles, you're like, that looks pretty. What is it? These circles is the formula for you to grow your business. This is what's going to allow you to grow your business. I talked about growth before. It's right up the top. When people say to me, Clint, I don't have enough students. I don't have enough money. I'm like, tell me what you're doing. Well, you know, I'm sending out invoices. I'm still teaching 100 classes. I'm like, nothing's going to change. Nothing is going to change. You need to put 80% of your time in growth, right? Growth, which is student attraction, enrollment, and retention. If you dedicated the next, let's say, 12 weeks to this pillar alone, your business would look entirely different. Absolutely, entirely different. That's the first pillar. Once we got growth sorted, then we need to move down into operations, which is our freedom pillar, right? You can see the signs on the side. The freedom. And you're like, oh, freedom sounds fun. If you have the right systems and processes in place, you get freedom. All of that stuff that I talk about, systems, processes, the outcome is freedom and life. And that's what I really want to give you. So what do you need to focus on here? Planning. You need a plan. Right? Who's like really great at planning? Hands up if you're like, yeah, I'm a master planner. Who's like, yeah, I write it down and then I'm kind of like, and then I go over here and I'm like, and then I kind of change direction. We're going to stop that this weekend. I'm going to give you a great planning tool. We want to look at systems, putting systems inside the studio, and we're going to talk about finance. Woo! Yes, you should be cheering about that. That's going to be a big conversation over these 3 days. If you are uncomfortable talking about money, I'm sorry. We are. Yay! It's going to be a lot of fun. Empire. This is where you create your empire. And guys, empire doesn't mean like you've got 100 studios across the country, you've franchised. Empire is your version of success. That might be one space, completely full, 40% profit. You're working 3 days a week. You can travel around with your family. The studio runs without you. That might be your version of empire. Your version of empire might be, I'm going to franchise and open up 500 locations across the country. That's your version of empire. None is better. It's what's going to work for you. What is your version of success? And to get there, we need these people called team members. And they are highly, highly valuable and important so that we can grow our vision, we can enroll people into our vision, and they can take the business to new levels that we probably didn't even think were possible ourselves. That's when you know you've got the right team members. Communication with your team is really important. Mentoring and hiring the right people is so crucial. There'll be a point in your business where you go from teaching classes to bringing on teachers, to mentoring those teachers, to then maybe having a program director who then looks after those teachers, and you're looking after the program director. Right? Kind of natural progression. But your role will become a mentor and a coach, not just a boss. Really, really important piece of this puzzle. And then you, one of my favorite things, if you don't work, nothing does. If you don't work, nothing does. How can you expect your team and your customers to be performing at their best if you're not? And so we need to focus. That's why I love seeing some pedicures and manicures going on over the last couple of days. I mean, I feel like, as I was thinking about this, I'm like, actually, this group of people really look after themselves. I'm really happy. And so that's a really important pillar. If that's not good, the rest of it, kind of tricky to manage. So if you don't have growth inside of your studio up the top, that means that you have empty classes. Would you agree? If you are not focusing on attracting, enrolling, and retaining your students, your classes are going to be empty. People say, Clint, my class is only at 40% capacity. I'm like, tell me about your marketing. Tell me about your marketing budget. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you just need to do marketing. Like, that's it. And we'll fix the problem. People don't just turn up to your studio. Yeah, it's not like, oh, I've got this new location. Like, it's on the road. Everyone can see it. I'm like, that's not marketing. Like, that's not a marketing plan. That's like hoping and wishing. Doesn't work anymore, right? So you can fix your empty classes. Focus on that. Freedom. If you're not here, finance, systems, planning, you're probably broke. And that's just That's just it. That's just the fact. You are probably not at a great profit margin, making good money if you're not focusing here. This stuff gives you the profitability and makes you the money. And if you're not focusing on leadership, you're going to be exhausted. Anyone in the room exhausted? Well, not now, because you've left your kids and you're like, good. But like a week ago, was anyone exhausted? Maybe. So let's fix that. Then we have combinations. When we work with growth and the leadership piece, we're going to get full classes. When you are marketing and you've got a marketing machine generating new leads for you every single week and you've got the right team in place, your classes are going to be full. Great people, great marketing, full classes. You're good. When you are marketing a lot and you've got the operations, you're going to create profit. We talk a lot about revenue. I'm like, revenue's fine, but I want to know about your profit. If you're making $1 million and your profit margin is 2%, I'm not so impressed by the $1 million. If you're making $500,000 and you've got a 25% profit margin, I'm like, hello, friend. Hello, friend. We're going to talk more about profitability and how it kind of does this in the business as well. And lastly, when you have freedom and you have leadership, you get back your time. And this is possible. We're going to be sharing a bunch of stories from amazing studio owners this weekend. So you will get to hear how they've been able to do this as well, because I think that's important. I want you to hear not just from me, I want you to hear from people who are in the trenches inside of the studio. And then we get Studio Bliss. Sounds like a spa, doesn't it? Studio Bliss. And we all want to get to Studio Bliss. Anyone? Anyone want to get to Studio Bliss? Yes. Oh, double hands up the back. I love you. But now we got to look at where are we in these 9 pillars at the moment. And think of a traffic light, right? We have a couple of colors on a traffic light. We're going to focus on the 2 colors. Green, go, good, awesome. Red, bad, terrible. Just the 2. We like black and white. And so as we go through this, I want you to jot down, when it comes to student attraction, and write this down, are you red or are you green? Who would be red? Who would be red in the attraction piece? Is anyone like, oh, I struggle with student attraction, I need help? A couple of you. Who would be green in student attraction? Who is not going to put their hand up for the next 3 days? I'm like, hang on a second, we're missing a couple of people here. Welcome to Clint's classroom where participation is required. You're like, yeah, Inner Circle members are like, I know. Have fun with that. Okay, enrollment. So who has their 11-step enrollment process set up inside of their studio? Hands. Who doesn't have an enrollment process? Who's kind of like, yeah, hi, sure, come along. Who's a little bit like that? Anyone in the room? A couple of you. Okay. What about retention? Who is green on retention? Who keeps their students? I love the happy face. Who's red? Who's like, you know what, we need to keep more kids. Like we're getting them, but we really need to keep them, right? Jot that down. What about planning? I asked this before. Who's really great at planning? Hands up, our great planners. Who's like pretty jumps around a lot when it comes to planning? And you would have heard me talk about the 90-day plan and you're like, well, I have these 3 goals, but then 2 days later I have another 3 goals and then I have a new 3 goals. And then you finish the 90 days and you've had about 90 goals and you're like, oh, I'm exhausted. And you're like, oh, and you're like, I didn't reach any of my goals. And I'm like, because you only need 3. 3 goals achieved is better than 90 goals not achieved or half done. That's what moves the business forward. And we're going to go into that, which I'm really excited about later in our programming. Systems. Hands up if you're like nailing systems, if you're getting systems created every week, if you're evolving your systems. Good Inner Circle contingency over here. Who is red with systems? Who's like, everything is in my head or my office manager's head and I really have no idea what's going on. And that's okay. You're like, amen, yes, that is me. That's okay. Finances. Who really wants to understand their finances better in their studio? Awesome. Who feels like they're like good? They're looking at their P&L every month. They're like understanding where money's coming in and out. You've got your revenue stream segmented. Awesome. Communication with our team. With our team. So that means we have to talk to them and we have to let them know what's going on. And we laugh because we know like I know with me, I'm like doing 100 things and then I'm like, oh, didn't I tell you that? They're like, no. I'm like, oh, sorry. Anyway, it just popped up and I just did it and I forgot to tell you. Anyone like that? Is anyone a little, yeah, I think that's like our creative type, right? We just like go for it and forget to tell anyone that it affects. Communication is important. Mentoring. Who feels like they're a great mentor and coach and has a good hiring system in place for their team members? Who feels like they're nailing that? Okay, probably about 20% of you. Who's red in that section? About 10% of you. Okay, so that's 65% unaccounted for. Orange, do we want to go the orange light? No, you can't take the orange light. What about growth? I mean, you're all here, so this is a really good sign. You're all here, you're all committed to growing your business and yourself. So I'd be ticking green if I was you. If you're only going to one thing a year, I mean, that's a problem, right? If you just expect to get inspiration and education once a year over 3 days, and you don't have any accountability to hold you to those goals, you don't have continual coaching, that's a little bit of a problem. Because I know, I hope, this is my hope anyway, that you walk out of here after 3 days and you're like, I love you, Clint, you've changed my life. Like, that's like literally really what I hope that you get. But I will tell you that I haven't changed your life in 3 days. I've given you some good ideas. I've probably shown you some things that you're not doing that you can be doing. But when you go home, that's when your life can start to change. Whether you implement the work, you go home to hubby and be, oh my goodness, I'm so excited. I'm going to grow an empire. I'm going to dominate. I'm going to dominate. And he's like, you're never going back there again. And they're like, look at my notebooks. I've got 100 notebooks. They're all filled out. It's amazing. And then you like throw the notebooks in the closet with all those other like very nice, pretty stationery that you've bought, all stacked up from all the years of training that you've gone to. And then it's business like usual. I don't want you to fall in that trap. I really, really want this to be a transformative experience for you that you take and that you keep fired up and you keep the momentum, you hold yourself accountable, which is very hard, but you can definitely do it, and you keep moving forward. Because as you take what we give you over these 3 days, you will come up against some speed bumps as you start implementing. And I want to make sure that you've got the momentum that you can keep moving forward with those speed bumps. So what was your score out of 9? Hopefully you're like, oh, I should have written that down. Yes. Too bad. No, I'll go back. So here are your 9 areas. Add them up, and your score is your greens. How many greens did you have out of 9? So if we look around the outside here, how many greens, how many reds? So who had 9 out of 9? Who's 9 out of 9 greens? Good. I don't know about a half hand. Who's 8? Any 8s? Nice. Nice. Good job, guys. 7s? Cool. Good. 6s? I'm like slowly walking back. 5s? 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 Awesome. 4s? 3s? A couple of 3s. You don't have to go, oh, it's okay. That's just where we are. 2? Any 2s? Yeah, proud to. And right up the front. I love that. Because what did I say before? This is just where you are today. That's all. It's just today. This is just a starting point. Just a starting point. 2s and 1s. Any 1s? Yeah, be proud. You're like, oh, no one else put their hand up. No, it's totally okay. Because guys, like I said before, we are all friends. We are friends in this game of running a dance studio. Hang on to that score, because we are going to come back to it. This is my goal. Let's move it up. Let's move it up. You won't be able to move it up in 3 days, because why? You're not working. You're with me. And you're not on a vacation. You're with me for 3 days. So that's the focus. But when you leave, let's give you the tools and the resources so that you can increase the score.